Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap Ltd materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics on my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. Just want to let everyone know that there's Bookmap is offering a chance to win a blue jacket and also 3 months of Global Plus. More about that in just a couple of minutes. I'll show you the webpage with the details. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index. And the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX, in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned to the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm a thesis. And for setups, and when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on a number of personal factors, as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel and Discord, as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, K2 Rim. Welcome. Glad you're here. And you're welcome. And very glad to help. I'm glad this is working out for you. So thank you for your kind words. And again, welcome. All right, here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, October 15th. First of all, we'll go over news items, economic data, and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, so pretty interesting day today. Let's take a look. Well, first of all, the news. So normally CPI was supposed to come out on the 15th. That was scheduled initially before the government shut down. Let me check that to make sure. So CPI data was scheduled to be released today, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and I believe it has been rescheduled to October 24th. All right, so banks have started reported earnings. Also, ASML, a Dutch chip equipment maker, reported earnings this morning. And then it looks like with the government shutdown and showing no no signs of a resolution to the government shutdown, it looks like the data that was scheduled for the rest of the week will not be released. Taiwan Semiconductor does report earnings before the market opens tomorrow. And then, of course, Friday is options expiration. This is the options expiration chart that's available in the Spotgamma dashboard home screen. It's showing, this is showing data for S&P 500, NASDAQ, Russell 2000. The vertical bars are showing market maker delta notional. Orange bars indicate positive call delta notional, and blue bars negative put delta notional. So you can see this is the options expiration coming up Friday right here, and pretty small compared to December options expiration, which is typically the largest expiration of the year. And it is slightly call dominated by about maybe 1.5 to 2 to 1. And that was not the case last expiration, which was very heavily call dominated. All right, so that's the news events for the week. Now let's take a look at this Bookmap. The chance to win 3 months of Global Plus and a Bookmap hoodie. You can go to bookmap.com/Blue Jacket for more information. And what you need to do is post a screenshot, a marked up screenshot of Bookmap, and then share it on X, LinkedIn, or Instagram, and with the hashtag #FreeBlueJacket to win these prizes. All right, let's move on. Move on to positional analysis now. And pretty interesting setup in the S&P 500. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And this is showing the price action that began as futures opened yesterday evening. Very steady grind up, and then kind of a whoosh up this morning with the brief bullish opening drive. And this was resistance at the SPY 670 absolute gamma strike, and then a sharp drop lower. So far down to the 660 level. That's a large gamma 2 level, so that's another SPY level. All right, before I take a closer look at this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame. And I'm going to go the SPX first. Again, the underlying index. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart for SPX and Thinkorswim. Let me just focus a little bit on the recent price action, starting with the September rally. So a little bit of a pullback. At the end of August, September rally, then another pullback right after September expiration. And then this is the price action last Friday. Right here, it's Trump threatened tariffs on China in the morning, Friday morning, 11 a.m. And then he followed through with the tariffs after the market closed, but before futures closed. All right, so that's that big bar right here. And usually it takes some time to recover after that. And so here's an analogy I found in the last year. This was in December. There's another large red bar. And then notice all the consolidation. And then that led up to the correction after February expiration, and then the February 2nd tariff announcement. All right, so this is just one analogy, one thing to keep in mind for potential price action after such a large down day. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but just something to keep in mind. A potential analogy, some consolidation after that. But so far, SPX has held the Friday lows. So let's take a closer look at that. Let's go to a shorter time frame. This is a 30-day 1-hour chart. So here's the pullback after the September expiration, and then the Friday drop. New tariffs on China. There's the Friday low. And again, so far, SPX has held that low, and so far trading inside the range from Friday. So looking at a daily chart, so far a series of inside days. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. And let me zoom in a bit. And we'll go from about here, we'll go September expiration. Oops. All right, so we can get a closer look at the current levels. I'm going to start with the expected moves. The weekly expected moves are shown with the dashed purple lines. This is the weekly expected move, lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And note earlier today, SPX did break up above the upper weekly expected move, as well as the upper daily expected move. Daily expected move shown by the dashed blue lines. Also based on the options market, this is based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And I do post those levels in Discord every day for SPX, ES, and NQ. Both the upper expected moves now trading back down within that range. All right, let's take a look at the spot gamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to spot gamma subscribers. And I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the put wall is at 6,500. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And that level did move lower from yesterday. So it's back down to the Monday level. All right, so that's a put wall. And the next level up is the volatility trigger at 6660. That is spot gamma proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market maker's position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And the key here is positive gamma, we're looking at lower volatility with market makers trading against price. And then in negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, wider range of movement as market makers are trading with price. That level also moved down from from yesterday and from Monday. So it's moved down 10 points the last couple of days, 10 points each day. All right, next level up is the absolute gamma strike. That's at 6,700. Notice price did break above that level earlier today. So that's the strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And then the call wall is up at 7,000 now. And it has been at that level all week. So that's the strike with large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance and, of course, is well out of play. All right, so to summarize shifts and levels for SPX, the volatility trigger and put wall both shifted lower. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart so we can focus on just the most recent price action. And this is showing price action for Friday, the big drop at 11 a.m. and a low for SPX in regular trading hours right around 65.50. And again, the futures did continue to trade lower on Friday afternoon, but nevertheless, on Monday, after Trump softened his tone over the weekend, SPX gapped up, chopped around, dropped back down on Tuesday, rallied all day. I did post that setup in X and Discord on yesterday. Then another gap up today, and then a reversal. And now it looks like SPX is trying to recover. All right, so today you can see the breach earlier today of the upper daily and weekly expected move. Also the absolute gamma strike at 6,700. And now it looks like SPX is trying to recover the 6660 volatility trigger. And it looks like that level did act as support earlier today. Now we'll see what happens as SPX approaches that level. Will previous support act as resistance? So we'll watch Bookmap for that potential. And notice there's been a lot of price action in this zone the last 3 days. All right, before we get to Bookmap, let's take a quick look at SPY, the other underlying index chart. So there's SPY, and there's the rally, dark shaded portion showing regular trading hours. And on Schwab, Thinkorswim, SPY does trade 24/5. So rally yesterday. And I think there was some news yesterday, but S&P 500 SPX ran into solid positive gamma resistance. And then SPY dropped down and really kind of resumed this uptrend. And then found resistance again at that 670 level earlier today. Traded down to the 660, actually 659. All right, so that's SPY. Now back to Bookmap. So I've zoomed out again and I was showing the price action that began yesterday evening. Now focusing on the regular trading hours today. Initially, ES, SPX, SPY found support right around the SPY 6660 gamma level. There's resistance at the 670 absolute gamma strike, and then a lot of angry traders coming in, setting up a very nice short. And so we'll cover both these trades, the bullish opening drive as well as the reversal. A little bit of support at the 6700 volatility trigger, 6660 volatility trigger that I mentioned before. And now it looks like, again, the S&P 500 trying to test that level from below. All right, so I've talked about SPY and SPX levels, and I marked those on my Bookmap chart. So there's hidden there is the SPX 6660 volatility trigger. And note there's a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it is somewhere between, let's see, 40 and 41. It was closer to 41 earlier today. So that's what I'm using. So I'm showing SPX 6660 at ES 6701. Again, it's somewhere between 40 and 41. And I do post the index relationships that I use every day in Discord. And that applies to SPY as well. It's a ratio for SPY and an offset or difference for ES and SPX. All right, so we'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. Let's move on to take a look at NASDAQ. And shifts in levels for SPY, the volatility trigger, also shifted lower. NASDAQ, similar chart. Q. Zoom in on current price action. All right, so after a brief move down, QQQ moved up and chopped around its 6060 gamma level and then dropped all the way down to this round number, 596. And here's the QQQ 600 absolute gamma strike. And now QQQ trading back above its volatility trigger at 598. All right, so that's QQQ. Volatility trigger shifted lower. Call wall shifted higher, now up to 620 compared with yesterday. And let's check the NDX now, the other underlying index component. Zoom in on this. Actually, let's leave this. So I want to see these levels down below. We'll zoom in from here. All right, so note most of the NDX levels are down below, but NDX did find support at the 24,500 level. That's a large gamma 2 level. And then support earlier today, right around this 24,700 level. And now NDX is testing that level from below. So just like the S&P 500, well, we'll keep an eye on that to see how it reacts at that level. See if that level that acted as resistance when tested from above, or acts as support when tested from above, acts as a resistance. So far, it looks like that may not be the case. All right, back to Bookmap now. So there's that 24,700 large gamma 3 level. And then the QQQ 606 0 gamma level. Chop around that level, then a sharp drop lower. All right, for NDX, the volatility trigger and put wall both move lower. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at, let's wrap up our positional analysis, and then we'll take a look at some setups. All right, so we've covered the levels in play. Go back to ES. Let's take a look at trace now. So I've talked about gamma in terms of the relation to the volatility trigger. That is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model. Now we're going to move on and take a look at trace, which shows a picture of gamma. And actually I have charm pressure here. Let's take a look at gamma. So let's start by taking a look at a picture of gamma at the beginning of the day. All right, so this is SPX. This is the gamma heat map. And this is showing a pocket of slightly positive gamma between around 66.45 and the large positive gamma at 67.50. That's not quite a 99 percentile strike. So to open a pocket of slightly positive gamma. Now let's step through time. And so again, the blue shading showing positive gamma, we're looking for lower volatility. and this is just slightly positive. Now that positive gamma at 67.30, that is a 99 percentile strike. Looks like SPX did not quite make it up to that level. Notice this is the hero signal here. More about that in just a minute. Turning sharply lower, that's the hero index signal. And the SP 500 follows into the negative gamma high volatility zone below. All right, so that's the current picture. So notice a little bit of positive gamma came in, maybe providing some support, but this is very unusual here. Just nothing showing on these GEX bars. K2 RIM asks, to trade ES futures, should we focus on SPX levels or SPY levels? I say focus on both. So today the SPY levels have been very important. And for NASDAQ, I think focus on NDX and QQQ. So focus on both levels. They're both important. So that's why in Bookmap, again, for the SP 500, I marked both SPX and SPY levels, as well as key ES levels like the zeros and the 50s and the expected moves. All right, so that's the picture now. S&P 500 and possibly strongly negative gamma with a little bit of blue shade down below. And notice also the hero signal has at least temporarily turned higher. And it looks like ES is trading slightly above or SPX is trading slightly above the volatility trigger labeled hedge wall here. All right, so let's move on. So that's the picture that we have now, I would say in solidly negative gamma, looking for much more volatility for today. All right, so let's take a look now at some setups, and then we'll get to the live market. I'm going to start with the S&P 500, and as always, I'm going to start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. And I'm going to zoom in on this. Actually, let me shift. So what this chart is showing, this is the hero signal, hedging impact real-time options. It's available to Spotgamma subscribers, and this is the S&P 500 index signal. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal. And it's showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. We've already talked about two of them. That's SPX and SPY. There's also ES and XSP. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for those index components. And again, the white line is price for SPX. The purple line is the hero signal. A rising hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They're buying calls and or selling puts. And a falling hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. And we can get a closer look at exactly what they were doing by switching to puts and calls separately. So the orange line is showing calls, the blue line showing puts, and again, rising lines indicate positive delta, falling lines indicate negative delta. So let's zoom in on this. I'm going to have to jump back to avoid the auto zoom. Let's zoom in on this so we can see what was going on this morning. All right, so this morning, up until about 9:50, S&P 500 was chopping. Hero signals were mostly flat, up and down, a little bit of up and down. And then just before 9:50, traders started buying calls. That's shown by the rising orange line. They started selling puts just a minute or two later. and the S&P 500 ES SPX moved higher. So that turned into bullish momentum. Orange line, blue line moving in the same direction. That didn't last long, just about 20 minutes. So that's the first distinct pattern here, is the bullish momentum leading up to a call peak reversal. And in this case, there's been some questions about the flow alerts. In this case, you never can tell about a flow alert, but in this case, as really is often the case, this flow alert acted as a reversal signal. So flow alert comes in, and then you confirm with the call peak pattern. Traders abruptly stop buying calls, start selling calls, also start buying puts, and then the S&P 500 consolidated for a bit, and then broke lower. All right, so a brief bullish play up to that SPY 670 level. So there you go, K2 RIM, SPY level, very important, and then started to break lower. All right, so this is the S&P 500 index signal. And in this case, when traders buy calls and sell puts, market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure by buying ES futures. And just the same when they take negative delta options positions, market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to hedge their delta exposure by selling futures. And they're doing this into negative gamma. All right, so remember this reversal happened right around 10:10. All right, so there's another hero signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500, and this is the S&P 500 equity signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. So it is a little bit slower moving since it is involving 500 stocks. But there's another distinct pattern here. So this is a bullish signal here. Traders start buying calls. And notice how that slows down. And often this hero signal can flatten out. So we know the index signal was already moving lower. So traders eventually take their foot off the gas. So that fuel buying calls is gone. They start buying puts. And then price moves lower. All right, so we know the index signal turned lower first, and then the call buyers and the equities took their foot off the gas. Hello, Goose. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's go back to the index signal now. All right, so this is very clear. Brief opening, bullish opening, move higher. Let's zoom in on this. So back to Bookmap now. So we can take a look at the setup in Bookmap. So we know bullish traders came in, started buying calls, selling puts right at 950. So there's that reversal of Bookmap. And that was right at the SPY 666 zero gamma level. Also VWAP for ES. The volume dots of Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Magenta dots show more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots show more buyers than sellers. So now we're linking up what we see in Bookmap with what we've already seen in Hero, confirming this long setup. Aggressive buyers come in. Cumulative volume delta shown by the dark blue line starts to rise, and also buy stop orders shown by the yellow line also starts to rise, and then those levels flatten out. All right, so that's the brief bullish setup. And that was actually good for about 40 points. And then quite a shift in the volume dots there. Aggressive sellers starting to come in. lining up with that call peak pattern that we saw on the S&P 500 S&P 500 index signal. And a lot of angry traders come in, aggressive sellers, and then price breaks lower. All right, so we see my stop orders have now stopped. Cumulative volume delta starts to drop. And then note also, large traders were fading this move since the cash open, or just a few minutes after, with iceberg orders. That's shown by the light blue line. Large traders fading that move. They were selling with iceberg orders. Now they've been buying. That's often the case. They will fade the move, so they will sell strength and buy weakness. All right, so that's the long setup. That was good for about 20 minutes this morning, but 40 points, nice 40 points. Move higher, and then the reversal lower. Hello, Alexandros. Welcome, glad you're here. And Andros asked, the change in Hero comes first, and then the change in SPX. That is typically the case. That may not always be the case, but I think for the S&P 500, that is very often the case. But I'm putting all the clues together for both this bullish setup and the bearish setup. All right, so now it looks like ES is chopping around. So let's go check that again. So I'm looking first. So I have multiple screens when I'm trading, and there's been some discussion on Discord about that. But I think to trade this approach effectively, you need at least 2 screens. Watching Hero on one screen, Bookmap on another. I have 3 screens, so I have a trading platform on another, or maybe Trace. So let's go back. Let's take a look at Hero to see which came first. All right, so the flow alert came first. So this gets your attention. It's flow Hero. It's been going for a while. So at this point, I'm looking for a potential reversal in Hero, especially since S&P 500 has moved up to that SPY 670 absolute gamma strike, a level that I expect might act as resistance. So I look at all key spot gamma levels as potential resistance when tested from below, or support when tested from above. So I know the S&P 500 is heading up toward that level that may act as resistance. I see this flow alert. I see a call peak pattern. So really, in this case, the Hero signal turned lower before price really turned lower. So price chopped around. Hero signal turns lower about 10:10, and then SPX drops lower maybe 20 minutes or so after that. So in this case, Hero definitely came first in the index signal. So that's the clue in Hero. All right, clues in Bookmap. Again, large traders fading that move, and that happened right at the cash open. So there's another clue. And then the aggressive sellers start to come in, giving you multiple opportunities to take a short there. So that's the complete picture of the things that I look at. So yeah, icebergs first, then Hero, then aggressive sellers at a resistance level, and price breaks lower. All right, so again, now it looks like SPX is chopping around just above the 660 volatility trigger. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. All right, NASDAQ, similar picture. And let's take a look at Hero. So brief move down, then a reversal. Aggressive buyers start to come in. Again, volume dots showing market buy minus sell. Green volume dots more indicate more buyers than sellers. chop. And the chop happened for over an hour. And then a final test of the 606 zero gamma level, and price breaks lower. All right, let's check Hero for NASDAQ. So just like the S&P 500, there are two signals that we can take a look at for the NASDAQ. This is the NASDAQ index signal. And this is showing options trades of market maker hedging activity for the NASDAQ underlying index components. That's NDX and QQQ. Looks like this price is for NDX. Looks like we lost some data there. Right around 125. All right, so this is the bullish move up, and then the call buyers and put sellers take the foot off the gas. And NASDAQ starts to move lower. All right, there's another signal that we can take a look at for NASDAQ. That's the Mag 7 signal. So a little bit choppy in the morning. And this was actually, I believe this was Apple or something similar to Apple, Mag 7. But anyway, the call buyers, a little bit late, took the foot off the gas. Put buyers came in, and NASDAQ moved lower. In this case, price is shown for QQQ. All right, so that's NASDAQ. Back to Bookmap. So again, the bullish move up for a few minutes. Consolidation for quite a while. Final test of the 606 level. And then price broke lower until the call buyers have come back in. Let's check that. All right, so in Mag 7, put buyers, call sellers have taken the foot off the gas. Let's check the NASDAQ index signal. And we see call buyers have come in, but again, it looks like a little bit of data for NDX was lost. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. And first stock I want to take a look at is AMD, the new market darling. This is a very bullish opening drive. Call buyers. And as the call signal really gets going, the flow alert comes in. And in this case, a continuation signal. Price breaks above the call wall, the 230 call wall, and continues to rally until about 11 a.m. when the call buyers took the foot off the gas. So when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. So this is a very bullish setup. It did take a few minutes for the call buyers to get going. So let's go to Bookmap. Let's take a look at AMD. Again, the new market darling. Then, so you can see all the green volume dots. There are a lot of aggressive buyers, a lot of traders buying stocks. Aggressive buyers shown by rising cumulative volume delta, and then cumulative volume delta flats out as the call buyers take the foot off the gas, and then price consolidates, but still near the highs of the day. So very nice bullish setup in AMD. All right, next stock, Broadcom. Broadcom had another bullish morning, and now consolidating much deeper than AMD. So let's see what options traders are doing in Broadcom. So again, it took a few minutes for the call buyers to come in. It looks like they may have been chasing a little bit. Key here is support around the 350 call wall key gamma strike. So price did trade below that level, then broke up above as traders are buying calls. And then as the call buyers took the foot off the gas, that fuel that had driven price higher was gone, and Broadcom started to move lower. Also, traders started buying puts, shown by the falling blue line. So rally off the 350 call wall key gamma strike. Call buyers take the foot off the gas, and Broadcom starts to move lower as traders start buying puts and stop selling calls. Let's go to Bookmap. And traders again buying Broadcom stock, show the green volume dots and rising cumulative volume delta. There's that reversal higher at the 350 call wall key gamma strike. Price did not quite make it up to the 360 liquidity there. Those are limit sell orders in the order book. And again, price did not make it up to that level. All right, so there's Broadcom. Let's take a look at another semiconductor stock. That's NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, just the opposite of AMD. Let's see what options traders are doing. All right, so there is NVIDIA, bearish opening drive. Put line flat, but traders selling calls. When traders sell calls, market makers buy the calls, and they have to sell stock to edge their delta exposure. So for about the first 20 minutes, a bearish opening drive, then a bit of consolidation, grinding down toward the 180 key gamma strike, and then down below the 177.50 hedge wall. So those are the two price targets for this move down today. Let's see what's happening now. So actually, it looks like some buyers have come in. NVIDIA found support at the 177.50 hedge wall, even though traders continue to sell calls. It looks like some put sellers might have come in. So let's go to Bookmap. So remember those two levels, 180, 177.50. So there's the 180 level. That was the first target. The high liquidity at that level. Those are limit buy orders in the order book, passive orders, resting buy orders, limit buy orders. And then price moved down, looks like just below the 177.50 hedge wall. Now, NVIDIA trying to recover. Note, even though there are a lot of green volume dots here, NVIDIA did move lower this morning, and it looks like the call sellers were overwhelming the stock buyers. Again, traders sell calls, market makers buy the calls. They have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure. All right, so now NVIDIA trying to recover. Looks like it may be attempting to break that downtrend. All right, let's take a look at a couple of other Mag 7 stocks. First of all, Meta. All right, Meta bullish opening drive. Trend break. Looks like absorption at this 724 liquidity. Again, limit sell orders in the order book. And then Meta broke lower down to the 710 level. Now trying to recover. And let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Meta. So 710 is the hedge wall, that level that I mentioned, acting as support. Bullish opening derived flow alert comes in just after the open, gets your attention, in this case a continuation signal. And then as the call buyers took the foot off the gas, that fuel driving price arrow was gone and Meta started to drop. Traders also started buying puts and price moved lower down to that 710 level. Again, the hedge wall where it found support. Call buyers came in a few minutes later, but overall the call signal has been flat since about 10:45. All right, so that's Meta. Call buyers driving price higher in the morning. When they stop, Meta drops. It consolidates or drops. All right, last stock I wanted to take a look at is Tesla. And Tesla is one of the most heavily options-driven stocks around. It almost always every day responds to options traders. So there was a drop in the morning down to 430, and thanks to Statics for pointing this out in Discord, dropped down to 430, and then call buyers came in aggressively, moved it back up 10 points to 440. Limit sell orders in the order book, those were consumed, and then Tesla dropped lower. So we'll see what options traders are doing. Go to Tesla. We'll zoom in on this a bit. So the call buyers came into the rescue right around 9:45. That looks like potentially a large block order. So that's an institutional kickoff. Large block order, that more vertical line there comes in, price reverses, and then the traders continue to buy calls. Again, traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. Then this is a call peak pattern that turned into a little bit of a call exhaustion. But overall, traders started selling calls, buying puts, and Tesla moved lower, back down toward the 425 hedge wall. All right, so there's Tesla. And two setups today. First, the long, as that large block order came in just right around 9:45. So that set up a brief long. Again, that was good for 10 points. And then the move lower, call peak reversal, call peak, call exhaustion. Traders start buying puts and price reverse lower. Set up 1, 10 points, and then set up 2. A little bit slower grind down, and then back down below 430. That low of the day so far. All right, does anyone have any questions, any stocks they want me to take a look at? Let's go back and check the indexes. Go back to ES. All right, so indeed ES has made it back up above the 6660 volatility trigger. It took a bit of chopping around that level, but the S&P 500 is trading above that level now. So let's go back and check Hero. I'm going to shift to the total signal. So we'll go back to the S&P 500 index signal. So that moved up right about 115 and then now is consolidating. But again, SPX did break above the 660 6660 volatility trigger level. Let's check trace. Still in firmly negative gamma. Let's check delta pressure. All right, so delta pressure is showing up above some buying support. So this is typical in a negative gamma environment where there's buying support up above and selling pressure red zone down below. Again, typical in a negative gamma environment, it would just be the opposite in a positive gamma environment. Let's check charm pressure. This is going to show buying support and selling pressure due to time decay. So it now looks like SPX is in a zone of potential selling pressure due to time decay. It's also showing one potential pin target right here, just above the 6660 level, with buying support, blue buying support down below, and red selling pressure up above, just above. And that is right at just above 6660, the volatility trigger. All right, let's go back to gamma. So still negative gamma. And we'll check hero. Hero moved up 115, now consolidating. Let's go back to Bookmap. All right, ES continues to grind higher. All right, any questions, any comments? Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Let's check NASDAQ. All right, remember for NASDAQ, 24,700 level, acting as support. Chop around that level. Now NASDAQ, NQ trading up above that level. Back to ES. All right, ES attempting to grind higher, not making a lot of progress after reaching the volatility trigger. All right, let's check out our stocks. Notice for AMD, this is the session volume profile. So most of the price action is in the zone from 231 to around 236. But still near highs of the day. Definitely on the upper end of the range. Let's check Broadcom. That's not the case. Looks like Broadcom more in the middle of the range. Oops. Most traded volume right in there. Check NVIDIA. Whoops. Oguz asked, can we check Oklo and RX? We can check OCLO. I'm not familiar with RX, so I don't have either of those stocks in Bookmap right now. We can check in Hero. So I know OCLO is in Hero. Let's shift back to puts and calls. We'll go to OCLO. OCLO has been crazy strong recently. And today, traders are taking profits. So I know OCLO was up pretty sharply in pre-market trading, and traders are selling calls. So they're taking it. Traders are taking advantage of this move up to take some profits in some of these crazy strong stocks like nuclear, quantum computing, very speculative stocks. So that's exactly what's happening at OCLO today. And a nice call peak pattern formed just 5 or 10 minutes after the open, and set up a very nice short in OCLO down to the 170 key gamma strike. So that's a huge move from about 194, 192 in OCLO down to 170, and actually down below now, 166. So about a 20 point, almost a 20 point move lower in OCLO today. And then RX, I'm not familiar with that. I'm almost 100% certain it's not an Hero, and again, I don't have it in a Bookmap. All right, so that's OCLO. Very nice short. One last look at the index. Back to total signal. All right, S&P 500 continues to attempt to grind higher. Back to Bookmap. All right, everyone, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on next Monday. All right, thanks again, everyone. Bye.